women in history I've never heard of and wouldn't be surprised if you haven't either. Today, let's talk about Shin Saimdang. Shin Saimdang was born in 1504 to a prominent Korean family in Gangwon province. She was brilliant, a woman ahead of her time. But considering the time and the fact that she was a woman, that's probably not even her real name. She's most often credited as the mother of a man who did become somebody very important. Because of course. Shin Saimdang was one of 5 daughters in a family with no sons. From an early age, it was obvious that she was brilliant and talented. She was gifted in poetry, embroidery, and calligraphy. But her greatest gift was in painting. Some say she was the greatest woman artist in Korean history. And sources said she began making that beautiful art by the age of 7, without the guidance of a teacher. In fact, her paintings were so good that stories say, as a child, she painted a grasshopper so true to life that a hungry chicken mistook it for real and was disappointed to get a mouthful of paint. Her paintings and calligraphy were so beautiful and intricate that intellectuals of the time acknowledged them. King Sukjong wrote an epilogue to her paintings. So yeah, you could say she was kind of a big deal. Her father granted her and her sisters a level of education, usually meant for only, you guessed it, boys. And some sources say that if she had had brothers, she may not have gotten an education at all, well, beyond learning enough to teach her future sons. But she didn't have brothers. So let's not linger on that, okay? She developed a, quote, abundant knowledge of Neo-Confucianism, of history and literature. Her father's visitors were so impressed and pretty surprised to meet such a brilliant little girl. She very much earned her father's favor. When she was 19, and as per tradition, her father chose a husband for her. Sources said he chose someone who would let her develop her skills. A couple things I read made it sound like her hubby wasn't exactly assertive. Unfortunately, her father passed away that same year. She was a dutiful daughter with no brothers. So she split her attention between taking care of her widowed mother and her own growing family. That wasn't exactly easy, since her mom lived quite a ways away. Oh, and just so you know, she and hubby had 7 kids. She felt it was her lifelong duty to honor her parents and the education they'd given her, to honor the gifts that she'd been born with. So she did. She used her gifts to create beautiful works. And yeah, as was expected of women of the time, she educated her children and raised them to be productive members of society. Oh, right. Remember I mentioned that she was the mother of somebody really important? Sources say her son was as brilliant as she and mastered the Confucian classics at age 7. He began writing beautiful poetry by age 8 and was a scholar, just like his mom. Yeah, so he became one of Korea's most famous philosophers. His name was I apologize if I got the pronunciation wrong. Today, he is known and revered as one of the greatest Confucian scholars in history. But let's get back to her, since she, not what her uterus produced, is why we're here. Now, there is something you need to keep in mind. She was greatly talented and fiercely independent, but that wasn't always easy. Yes, because she was a woman. And she may have been a renowned painter in her own time, but artists were considered rather low class, despite that their work was greatly admired. And making a career of it, basically impossible. But for her, it wasn't just art. As I said, she was a writer who created, quote, poetry that was thoughtful, introspective, and revealing of her personal struggles and triumphs. She, quote, conveyed her unique perspectives on life, nature, and womanhood in a society that often silenced women's voices. She wrote words that stand as proof of her intelligence and her determination to be who she was, a woman who defied social norms, that stated that she, and all women, were inferior. Her work also gives us a snapshot into women's lives at the time. And her story read to me that she was so independent that she bowed to no man. Well, unless she chose to. Shin Saimdang passed away in 1551 at about 46 years old. Some of her paintings still exist, about 40, in ink and stone paint. It is believed that many others exist but have not been identified yet. To be fair, at least one source said that she may be receiving credit for something men did. But I repeatedly find that women throughout history, who do great things, find themselves relegated to supporting roles to protect tiny egos. Unfortunately, despite her style being greatly praised in her time, not much of her calligraphy can be found. Today, you can visit her ancestral home in Gangwon, South Korea. It was built in the early days of the Joseon dynasty. In 1963, it was designated a national treasure for its historic value. It's also considered one of the oldest surviving homes from that time period. There is at least one award given in her name annually. She appears in textbooks and on TV and film. And as of 2009, you'll find her portrait on the Korean 51 note, the first Korean woman to appear on their currency. But that brings with it a little bit of controversy. You knew that was going to show up eventually, right? See, because in her lifetime and for centuries after, she was revered for her intelligence and for the things she created. Her artwork, even now, is known for its, quote, delicate beauty. Insects and flowers, orchids, grapes, and fish, and landscapes were among her favorites. But these days, she's held up as the perfect example of a good wife and mother. The best example of motherhood in Korea. Because of her son. Remember him? Officials said that they chose her to, quote, promote gender equality and women's participation in society. But women's groups have protested that decision, reasonably stating that choosing her, the best mom, reinforces women's perceived inferiority. She serves to remind women of their place. So instead of being revered as a brilliant scholar and creative, an inspiration to a nation of women, she is reduced to reminding them of nothing more than to worry about producing children, whether scholar and creative or good wife and mother, or how men have chosen to portray her roles. Shin Saimdang remains one of the most significant women in Korea's history.